Thanksgiving was supposed to be Rachel's chance to heal old wounds with her family. She never expected the night to end in screams, betrayal, and a life-altering choice that would leave her estranged. Get ready for a story you won't forget, because what Rachel did next changed everything. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Rachel's childhood wasn't filled with joy or encouragement. It was defined by roles. Her father, a man quick to judge, wore criticism like a second skin when it came to Rachel. Whether it was a test score that wasn't good enough or the way she trimmed the grass, he always seemed to find a flaw. Her mother, on the other hand, stayed silent, diffusing tension with vague, disinterested murmurs instead of support. Then there was Kevin, her older brother. Kevin was the golden child. He didn't need to work hard to earn praise, and he never seemed to face the scrutiny Rachel always did. It wasn't surprising then that when Rachel established herself and got a solid job right out of college, she somehow ended up as her family's very own safety net. Her father called it helping because she's the responsible one. Over 3 years, Rachel gave her parents $28,800, helping cover their mortgage and various bills when expenses piled up. Kevin? He never pitched in. Kevin couldn't afford it, Rachel's dad would say. Yet, Kevin's Instagram told a different story. Weekend trips, restaurant selfies, and expensive sneakers. Rachel paid the bills while he lived carefreely. What hurt more than the financial strain was the obliviousness of her family. She wasn't thanked for her sacrifices, and when she brought it up, any hint of frustration was brushed off. Rachel, who was juggling stressful projects at work, couldn't believe the constant deflection. Why wasn't anyone checking on her? Every ignored achievement, every dismissive comment stacked onto Rachel's growing resentment. It was clear who held the family together financially, her. But love, attention, anything deeper than obligation? That seemed reserved for Kevin. So when Thanksgiving approached, Rachel decided to host it at her apartment. To her, it was a chance to show her parents that she wasn't just an ATM or a background figure in their family dynamic. Rachel had spent weeks preparing for Thanksgiving. Her apartment was spotless, the dining table carefully arranged, and the smell of roasted turkey filled the air. She wanted everything to be perfect, down to the smallest detail. It wasn't just a meal, it was a statement. For once, she wanted her parents to recognize all she had achieved: a beautiful home, a successful career, and the ability to host the family gathering herself. But as her parents and Kevin arrived, the atmosphere shifted almost immediately. Her father barely stepped inside before making a comment about how small her apartment felt compared to their house. At the table, he poked at the turkey she had spent hours brining and roasting, muttering, "A little dry, don't you think?" Rachel's mother joined in too, though her remarks were less direct. She sat back, quietly pointing out the mismatched serving dishes or the newfangled cranberry sauce Rachel had made from scratch. When she wasn't nitpicking, she was reminiscing about the dinner Kevin had hosted years ago, with a sweetness in her voice that Rachel never heard directed toward herself. Rachel could feel years of silent frustration building until it exploded all at once. She challenged her parents, calling out their constant favoritism toward Kevin, their comments that diminished every accomplishment she'd worked for, and the endless financial demands that had drained her over the years. Her words hung in the air, shaking the room with a weight they weren't prepared for. Her father's response was as cold as it was heartbreaking. He stood, glaring at her, and said, "If you don't appreciate what we've done, consider yourself no longer part of this family." It stung, but Rachel surprised herself with her reply. "Fine. If that's how you feel, then we're done. Don't ask me for another dollar, and don't show up here again." The fallout began immediately. Days later, her parents came unannounced, banging on her door, demanding to talk. She refused to open it, and when Rachel ran into her father at the grocery store weeks later, his snide remarks about ungrateful children only solidified her decision. What she didn't expect was Kevin's reaction. For the first time, he admitted their parents had never been fair, and he even offered to take over the next round of bills. Later, Kevin revealed something shocking. Their parents had been drowning in debt for years. Thanksgiving hadn't just aired out old grievances. It had pulled back the curtain on a truth Rachel never saw coming. In the days after Thanksgiving, Rachel was left with a mix of emotions she couldn't untangle. Cutting ties with her family initially felt like taking a deep breath after years of suffocating. But as the days stretched into weeks, the grief hit her. Therapy became her lifeline. Dr. Sarah Collins, a compassionate and sharp observer, helped Rachel confront emotions she had long ignored: anger, guilt, sadness, and frame them in a new way. Dr. Collins explained that grief doesn't just come from death, it can come from losing the family you imagined you had. It wasn't the picture-perfect Thanksgiving that Rachel mourned, but the realization that she'd been chasing love and validation from people who might never be able to give it. Dr. Collins also introduced Rachel to the idea of boundaries as a form of self-respect, emphasizing that rebuilding relationships was possible, but only if accountability and change came from both sides. With her therapist's guidance, Rachel began taking steps toward rebuilding her life from scratch. It wasn't easy. She was essentially starting over with no sense of how to move forward. But she kept going. Rachel leaned on her chosen family, close friends who had supported her for years, but were now stepping in as her safety net. Sunday brunches turned into deeper bonding moments, and she even took up volunteering, teaching financial literacy to underserved communities, a subtle way of channeling her past frustrations into something empowering. Meanwhile, a surprising shift was happening with Kevin. After years of taking a back seat to everything, he admitted to Rachel that their parents' favoritism hadn't been fair. Even more, he offered to take over utility payments, marking the first time he had stepped up in any meaningful way. This wasn't a perfect fix for their relationship, but it was a start, and it showed Rachel something she never thought she'd see: a willingness from one family member to change. Then came another revelation. Their parents' financial instability was worse than Rachel had imagined. They had concealed tens of thousands in debt, and the foreclosure of the family home was already underway. Through it all, Rachel reached a turning point. She realized the family she had been working so hard to win over didn't truly exist, at least not in the way she had fantasized. And in that clarity, she found freedom. When her father eventually reached out just before moving to Arizona, he did something she hadn't expected. He acknowledged he had been unfair, saying, "We didn't appreciate you the way we should have." It wasn't a full apology, nor was it instant healing, but it mattered. It meant that she could finally stop looking for answers in the past and focus on the future she was building for herself. "True family supports your wings, not clips," Rachel once said, describing the lesson she had learned after years of sacrifice. Her story reminds us all that family isn't defined by blood, but by the support and respect we give and receive. For Rachel, setting boundaries wasn't just a choice, it was survival. It meant reclaiming her self-worth and allowing space for healthier, more meaningful connections. So, ask yourself, who in your life helps you fly? Take a moment to reflect on what family truly means to you, and remember it's never too late to prioritize your own well-being.